One of the most urgent tasks of our country is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The ability of CO2 to do the heavy work of creating a climate catastrophe is almost nil at this point.
The price of oil has been artificially elevated to the point of insanity.
That's not how you power a modern industrial system.
The ultimate goal of this renewable energy, plan is to reach the exact same point that we're at now.
You know who's tried that? Germany. 7 straight days of no wind for Germany. Their factories are shutting down.
They really do act like weather didn't happen prior to 1910.
Today is Friday.
That's right, Greta. It is Friday. And this is the best day of the week. Not just because the weekend is almost here, but because this is the day the Heartland Institute broadcasts the Climate Realism Show worldwide. My name is Jim Lakely. I am Executive Vice President of the Heartland Institute, which is an organization that has been around for 42 years. We are known as the leading global think tank pushing back on climate alarmism. The Heartland Institute and this show bring you the data, the science, the truth that counters the climate alarmist narrative you've been fed every single day of your life. There is nothing else quite like the Climate Realism Show streaming anywhere. So I hope you will help us out by bringing friends to view this live stream every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And also like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments underneath the video. These very simple tasks convince YouTube's mysterious algorithm to smile upon this program, and that gets the show in front of even more people. And as a reminder, because big tech and the legacy media are not big fans of the way we cover climate and energy policy on this program, Heartland's YouTube channel has been demonetized. So if you want to support this program, and I really hope you do, please visit heartland.org/TCRS. That's heartland.org/TCRS. And you could join other friends of this program who help bring it to the world every single week. And before we get started, we want to thank our streaming partners, junkscience.com, CFACT, What's Up With That, the CO2 Coalition, and our friends at Heartland UK Europe. Let's get started. We have a very big show and probably not enough time. But so without further ado, we have with us Anthony Watts. He's Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute and publisher of the world's most viewed website on climate change, What's Up With That? We have Sterling Burnett, the Archbishop of Canterbury, whose day job is the director of the Arthur B. Robinson Center for Climate and Environmental Policy at the Heartland Institute. We have Linnea Lueken, Research Fellow for Energy Environment Policy at Heartland, who's going to be going squatching after this show goes off the air. And also want to thank our producer extraordinary, Andy Singer, behind the scenes, making sure everything flows great. And our special guest, once again, our friend Steve Milloy. He's a fellow at the Energy Environment Institute. He was on the Trump EPA transition team in the first term. He's a board member at the Heartland Institute, and he's also known as the climate hoax slayer. He's got lots of other hats he wears, but that should probably do for now. Welcome back for us, Steve.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Very good to be here. And I see that we get people in the chat here on YouTube in here very early. We got people from, I saw Denmark is here, South Africa's checked in. I know we have regular viewers in New Zealand and the Netherlands. It's just, it really warms our hearts to see so many fans of the show from all over the world come in every week. All right. Well, before we get started with the show, I also want to announce, as I have the last few weeks, the Heartland Institute's 16th International Conference on Climate Change is going to be April 8th and 9th in Washington, D.C. at the Hotel Washington. Space is limited and tickets are going fast. So if you want to attend, if you want to see myself, maybe not me as much, but Steve Milloy and Anthony Watts and Sterling Burnett, Linnea Lueken, and really the brightest scientists and policy experts in the world on climate, you need to be at this conference. You can go to heartland.org. There's a feature right there on the front page that'll click you through to the special climate page where you can get more information about the hotel and about getting tickets. One of our keynote speakers is going to be a Nobel Prize winner, a real Nobel Prize winner in physics. John Clauser is going to be giving a keynote address. We just learned yesterday that the governor of West Virginia is going to also be a keynote speaker. He's important to listen to because of the landmark West Virginia versus EPA lawsuit. It's not something you're going to want to miss. You can go to climateconference.heartland.org or just heartland.org and click through. You can see all the speakers there. Chris Martz, I know, has got a lot of fans in this audience. Will Happer, of course, Willie Soon, Dr. Judy Curry, Lucy Biggers, a convert from climate alarmism to climate realism, who's been on this show before. This is going to be our biggest and best conference ever. But again, seating is limited. So if you want to attend, don't delay. Get your tickets now. And if you have any questions, you can always just use the contact information at Heartland, and we can answer any questions that you may have. We hope to see you there. All right. Well, let's get started as we always do by covering the crazy climate news of the week. Hit it, Andy. Thank you very much, Eli.
Everybody.
All right. My first item I've titled Curtains for Doomsday Glacier. And this story comes to us from Popular Mechanics, which I think formerly was a pretty great magazine. Most things have gone downhill these days. Headline is Scientists Want to Build a Multi-Billion-Dollar Curtain Around the, quote, Doomsday Glacier. Let me read a bit from it here. A seabed curtain to protect Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica would be difficult and expensive. No kidding. But doing nothing to slow the glacier's collapse could be even worse. Known as the Doomsday Glacier, Thwaites Glacier is located on the northern edge of the West Antarctic ice sheet. It received its ominous moniker because the glacier contains enough water to raise average sea levels by 2 feet, and it's concerningly close to collapse. However, that's only the beginning of the problem, because if Thwaites eventually does break away, it could destabilize the broader ice sheet, ultimately adding as much to 10 to 15 feet to global sea levels, according to the experts over at the New York Times. Groups like the Seabed Curtain Project have designed methods for protecting Thwaites Glacier from warmer ocean masses by constructing a 50-mile-long, 500-foot-high seawall at a depth of roughly 2,100 feet. If building a complicated megastructure in one of the harshest environments on Earth sounds expensive, it's because it is. Estimates put the price tag at many billions of dollars. I'm sure that is very, very low. However, even that might be a drop in the bucket if coastal cities around the world must prepare for a 15-foot rise in sea level instead. Because of Antarctica's international status, engineering and cost may be only the beginning of the headaches for building such a massive curtain. But due to the world's inability to curtail greenhouse gas emissions or to keep atmospheric warming to manageable levels, an age-old maxim may once again prove true. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Sterling, before we started the broadcast, you were actually talking about how you watched the original Game of Thrones. They had a big wall up there in the north, and it seemed to do its job. What's wrong with building a wall underwater in Antarctica?
Well, it did its job for a while, and then the dragons came. And in this case, the dragons that they aren't accounting for, as far as I can tell, is the fact that the Thwaites Glacier is in fact declining due to subsurface volcanic activity, which I don't know how a curtain's going to stop. It's going to melt. And when it does, it will flow around the curtain. The water's going to reach the sea. I just can't even imagine. I'm imagining it already. What they're talking about, holding back the ice. I'm not convinced that it won't cost more to try and fail to do that than it will to harden cities against any sea level rise. And the estimates for how much it would raise sea levels are just, I think I heard 3 different figures in that one little story, as you say, by New York Times experts. It's idiotic. And it's not clear to me they can do something that will have the intended effect, and that the intended effect is necessary. We don't know what's going to happen to the Thwaites Glacier. We know that ice is accumulating on the rest of Antarctica, besides the peninsula and West Antarctica. And I don't think we can. I honestly just don't think the physics that we can control it. I don't think we can stop it, and I don't think that a modest 1 temperature rise down in Antarctica.
Oops, Sterling froze there. Anthony, maybe we can call it the King Canute Memorial Glacier Wall.
That's a good name for it.
There you go.
Yeah, Sterling's right. There's volcanic activity underneath there. There's tectonic activity underneath there. and those are working to destabilize that ice sheet. Those have nothing to do with climate change. And I would point out, and I was trying to find a map here while we were talking, but I just ran out of time before I was up, looking for a map showing the temperatures right now, the air temperatures down in Antarctica. You know, it's summer down there, the end of summer, so it's at its warmest period. But, you know, you got to look at the temperatures down there on any given day, and most of the thing is still well below freezing. They claim that climate change is causing it to melt, you know, from warming air temperatures. Just doesn't seem to hold up very well. And then there's thoughts about, you know, ocean currents. Ocean currents have been pegged as causing warming in the Antarctic Peninsula. We don't know yet how much they affect the, you know, things like the Thwaites Glacier. But the bottom line is that it's a massive amount of ice, and yes, it could raise sea levels. It's about the size of Florida. If it fell into the sea and melted, it might raise sea levels 2 feet. But, you know, we've been through warmer periods in the past, and apparently that did not melt. So I'm not too worried about it.
I would say that we have an engineering fix for the volcanoes too. We just need to put a cork in them. Put a really, really expensive, powerful cork into the volcanic creases that are seeping, that are warming the subsurface.
Christopher Reeve's Superman did that once. It worked fine.
There you go. What could go wrong? What could
Fill it
go
with
wrong?
Flex Seal.
Just
Flex
throw in
seal.
some background here. So this glacier got the name Doomsday Glacier in a Rolling Stone article by a Rolling Stone writer. So it's not science. I think I've seen estimates that, you know, the actual melting is maybe 2 inches over the next 50 to 100 years. There's been no warming in the West Antarctic ice sheet for decades. I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, Sterling and Anthony are right. You got this volcanic activity underneath, but that's it. And that's out of our control. And as Sterling pointed out, no wall is going to stop that.
Yeah, and I had a little minor like freak out on Twitter or X 2 weeks ago when the New York Post released their article talking about this curtain plan, and I had called it at the time, you know, that it has like the scientific weight of one of those like what if Marvel comics, and it's basically like make work, right? You know, you get 30 of these articles a year. It's what if we put parasols in space to block the sun to stop global warming? What if we used gene editing to prioritize shorter people over taller people because shorter people have fewer energy demands in general? Like just stupid stuff that they come up with a million times that are never going to go into effect, but they just need to write about something. They just want to do some kind of a study and they want to connect it to climate change. So here's our engineering project for climate change.
Wasn't there a movie about that? The I don't know if it's gene editing, but they had some technology that they would offer couples, lavish lifestyles if they'd allow themselves to be shrunk and live.
I think there was a TV show.
with
I
Rick
think it might have been
Moranis in
something on
that?
Netflix.
It's not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this was a movie. I think Matt Damon was in it, and it's like, yeah, you're going to become.
He's already kind of shrunk, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. But yeah, they already had this movie, and it was always the elite. It was never some wealthy person saying, "Oh yeah, shrink me to inches in size so I can live in a real mansion."
Oh, all right, Anthony, you have an image to show to kind of wrap up this topic for us?
I pulled this up. Now this shows the average temperature for Antarctica over the year 2025. It's not for any particular day or week or anything, but it just shows the average temperature. And as you can see there, the vast majority of the surface of Antarctica is well below freezing throughout the year. End of story. Air temperature is not really affecting the Thwaites Glacier.
All right. Very good. Well covered. We will move on to a second crazy climate news item, and I've titled this one Tiger Tail, and this comes from What's Up With That, Anthony Watts' website. Headline is Meet the Bengali Widows Who Lost Their Husbands to Tigers Because of Climate Change. That's right. This comes from Eric Worrell, who writes there. By the way, if and he writes, if large predators keep eating people in your village, the solution is to build wind turbines and install solar panels. Of course it is. Let's read a little bit here from the story. Rena, like several of her companions, is a tiger widow, a local woman whose husband has been taken by the Bengal tiger. Quote, in 2022, my husband went to catch fish and crabs and never returned. He was killed by a tiger, Rena says, as her voice trails off. The situation has been exacerbated in recent years amid rising instances of human-tiger conflict, primarily due to the adverse effects of climate change, of course, right? Umashkar Mandal, founder of PEHS, says, quote, since many men enter the forest without official permits, their deaths are often considered illegal, disqualifying their families from receiving government compensation. This leaves numerous tiger widows vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. Several studies have revealed cases of physical abuse, sexual exploitation, and trafficking into sex work. All of that is really awful and terrible. I don't think climate change has much to do with it. As Eric writes, I feel sorry for Rena and all the women who lost their husbands to tiger predation, but here's a radical idea. Why not arm the menfolk with guns so they can go into the forest and shoot a few tigers? Linnea, like I said, you're going to go and squatching later, and you're familiar with firearms. And I don't know if climate change has anything to do with this, but the story does say that climate change is reducing the tigers' habitat, so they're getting closer to the human populations. But again, it seems like this is a problem that has a logical and simple solution.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, like a tiger, and say that I think probably it's not climate change reducing their habitat, but rather human encroachment on habitat in general for agriculture and other things. And also, they just said in the same article that these guys are going into off limits like Tiger Preserve to do probably poaching, you know, of whatever little animals are in there that they're trying to eat.
I got to say, I have some
Sure.
sympathy, not just for the widows, but their husbands, in the sense that historically, we kept tigers in check. They ate humans. They've always predated upon the people of India and in Siberia, wherever tigers have existed. They're one of only two mammals that actively hunts humans, them and polar bears. But tigers had some fear when they used to be hunting them sometimes. And it's true that I would wager that their habitat is actually expanding due to climate change, that the forest edges are growing, except for the fact that they're cutting them down. Now, I have a solution, and they are right. It's a wind and solar solution. Clear cut the entire jungle, put up wind and solar panels, and you don't have to worry about tigers eating people because there's nothing for them. There's no place they can live. But that would be the wind and solar solution. Absent that, wind and solar ain't going to do much to either help the tiger widows or those that they are predating upon. You have to put fear back into them, just like you do with other animals that whether we think it's a good thing or not, that humans and have pushed up against wild areas. You've got the wolves and mountain lions in the Western United States. We do it everywhere where we expand, and whether you think that's a good thing or not, it's the fact. And if you don't want unnecessary deaths, you got to control the tigers. And just setting aside an area that was a traditional use for these people and saying, sorry, you can't go do what you were doing before in this area because we've decided tigers are more important than you. I think that's absurd.
I'm going to differ with you, Sterling. I think the solution is at hand. Here's the forest. Don't go in it because you get eaten. And if you go in and get eaten, we told you. What's the problem?
Tigers are one of the few animals on Earth that are frequent and consistent man-eaters.
Yeah.
There aren't a whole lot of animals that do that. Polar bears do. Tigers do. Tiger sharks do.
Polar bears do it when they're hungry, and then they have to go on land. And so, of course, the people are right there. There's nothing else there.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the tigers. Maybe the people that run the preserves can have more game for the tigers, but in the end, if you know there are tigers in the jungle, stay out of the jungle.
But my answer to you, Steve, is it's not clear to me that government should be setting aside large swaths of land. Well, we've decided that this is not for people, and now we're the government.
Tiger
we control
hater.
things. Yeah, look, I believe I'm a humanist. I believe in people.
Well, so do I, Sterling. But we can have tigers
I think
too.
we should establish
And-
property rights, and then let some
I-
Indian.
I agree with you, but we can have tigers too. I mean, tigers have suffered through. I can't believe I'm arguing this, but with Sterling. They have suffered human encroachment, and it's just never ending. And I think it's okay to say, look, this is just for tigers, and I'm not for doing this in the United States, mind you. I think our government should get rid of all its property. We should pay off the damn debt. Okay, but in India, it's a different situation, and we don't have tigers here. They have tigers there, though.
No, but we got wolves and grizzly bears, and I just don't think that we should tailor our public policies for them as opposed to for people.
But I think we dumb down life enough. You tell people it's dangerous over here, and if they still go there, well, that's just Darwin. Darwin in action, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. It's nobody's fault but their own.
Yeah, well, I understand that. The people that go down to the river because they have no water and they got to get water and the crocs get them. That's the way of life. I understand.
Yeah.
That.
Right. Well, I'll just say that there was a horribly misogynistic comment put up about who the real man-eaters are. And I will remind everyone on the show that the person in charge of putting comments up is Linnea. So it's totally fine. Joke accepted. Very well done.
I missed the comments. I missed the comment entirely. That's too bad.
You'll have to see it on the replay. All right, let's move on to kind of gross. There's always a gross climate story, it seems, every week for us. The fungus among us. This comes from earth.com. Deadly fungus that will, quote, eat you from the inside out is quickly spreading around the world. So if you're a fan of the game or the program, The Last of Us, this is pretty scary. That's what I kept thinking of reading this. Let me read from it. Imagine inhaling hundreds of invisible spores every day. Most float in and out of our airways without leaving a trace. Yet some of those spores belong to molds that don't respect boundaries. Most of the time, healthy immune systems swat away dangerous spores and fight off infection. Trouble arises when weakened defenses, rising temperatures, and heavy fungicide use tips the scales. After studying fungal threats for years, Dr. Norman Van Ryan and colleagues at the University of Manchester mapped out how 3 notorious Aspergillus species, I'm not even going to say that again, let's just say fungus species, might spread through the end of the century. They fed climate change scenarios into global models and watched the virtual spores drift. One scenario, which assumed a fossil fuel-dependent future, paints an unsettling picture. Habitats across Europe become markedly friendlier to these pathogens. They go on to say no single fix will erase the risk, but, of course, cutting greenhouse gas emissions limits the environmental changes that favor Aspergillus fungus. And, of course it does. Anthony, here is yet another scare story based on computer modeling. How much weight should we even give it?
Well, if you go to the link that I posted up just a moment ago, you'll see how I labeled it. I called this fake clickbait. It's a double whammy. It's just so bad. It's so incompetent. They ran some RCP 8.5 composite models. And if you scroll down, there it is, fake clickbait. And that's really what this is. The story is completely without factual substance. It's all speculation. And the speculation is based on a climate model that has been disproven because it's not possible. There's not enough fossil fuel in existence on the planet to burn to make those projections occur. But worse than that, they just simply glazed over what the real problem was with fungal infections. It's not like, John Q. Public is strolling down the street and gets whacked with a spore and goes home and dies. It's not that at all. This is people that are at risk, that are in hospitals, have weakened immune systems and so forth. That is where there's been an increase in fungal infection. And that is usually due to the infrastructure of the hospital, cleanliness, things of that nature. But as far as the average person being hit by a fungus that's going to eat them from the inside, that is complete, total crap. And they don't even mention anywhere in their own article about getting eaten from the inside. That's just a clickbait headline that they generated. The study doesn't talk about it either. So it's just junk. As Steve would say, junk science.
Good term for it, yeah.
I've
there are no fungi that live at the average global temperature, I'm told.
I've been whacked by worse things than fungi. I'd take a fungi over a board or a fist almost any day.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a zombie-inducing cordyceps, I think we're going to make it.
You
The
know, I don't
Last
even
of Us
know why
joke
they
that only
print
me
this
and
stuff,
Linnea
because
get.
Yeah, they print this ludicrous stuff and everybody just laughs at them and they think it adds to their credibility. And I don't know, anybody that believes it, I mean, those people are lunatics to start with. So, and no one listens to them. I don't get it.
Steve, let me ask you, do you really think that's true that most people laugh at them? Because I think they see these headlines and all of a sudden they get anxiety and they start saying, we got to do something about climate.
Well, I think there's some people like that for sure. But I think that they marginalize themselves. So,
Well, I mean,
they're not what's driving the debate.
No, but I think, the reason we bring up these things, we call it the crazy climate news, is that, the list of things that we are supposedly responsible for because we drive SUVs and burn, have coal-fired power plants, is just endless, no matter what it is. How about just writing the story about the fungus? It's interesting enough. You have to always tie it in the fact that we are making it worse because we're living a modern carbon high lifestyle.
What's this we thing, Jim?
The whole notion that a slight incremental change in a temperature that doesn't really exist changes the world is nuts.
Yeah, well, and as Anthony pointed out in the article, that it's not even. They make it sound like the headline makes it sound like it's happening today. That's not what the study says.
There's no evidence in the data of an increase.
Not happening at all.
The general population.
Yeah, that's not what the study. And that's not even what the study was about. The study's about possible increases in the future.
Yeah.
Not happening today. Not killing anyone today. And as Anthony writes, there's no data that supports the idea that even we've already had warming. No data supports an increase. So oftentimes. Studies are bad enough, and this I think is not a well done study because they started with a bad model, but the media makes it even worse.
Yes, they do. And as we've reported on climaterealism.com on a regular basis, whatsupwithat.com on a regular basis, the media is paid to come up with this crap. They really are. I mean, the Associated Press got a whole big grant to come up with alarming climate stories, And fortunately, this stuff is on the downswing. Just a couple of weeks ago, we posted up a graph that showed how media coverage of climate change is in the decline in the number of reporters. Like at the Washington Post, they got their whole climate staff pretty much whacked. So they're on the downturn. So hopefully these kinds of things will become less frequent. But I urge every one of you watching today, every time you see a piece of junk like this and it's junk, write to the editor and say, why do you allow this non-factual stuff on your website or in your newspaper or your magazine? And then send them some references. Use Climate at a Glance as a reference. Use Climate Realism as a reference. Send it to them. Eventually, maybe some of these folks might get it through their head that they're not really doing journalism.
Yep, that is true. I call myself a recovering journalist, and it's been 18 years since my last story, and I get my chip on that. I can't wait to get my 20-year chip on that. It's going to be great. All right.
Are you still going to the support meetings, Jim?
That's what this is. This is my support meeting every week. Keeps me straight and out of the legacy media. All right. Never going back, guys. Never going back. All right. We also wanted to cover Donald Trump's State of the Union address, the longest in American history. It didn't, as we covered it yesterday on In the Tank, which is, you can watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern time on these very channels. It was the longest ever, but it didn't feel that long. It sure was entertaining. And he went over a obviously broad breadth of topics, and I noted that this is he did the word climate didn't come out of his mouth one time. In fact, the only time he referred to climate change is when he referred to the Green New Scam. But I thought I would scrub through the State of the Union speech and pull out all of the sections where he mostly talked about energy. And I wanted to play this for everyone, for the audience, so that you can have that for your records. It's about 2.5 minutes long, and then we can talk about what he said.
Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places $1.99 a gallon. And when I visited the great state of Iowa just a few weeks ago, I even saw $1.85 a gallon for gasoline. American oil production is up by more than 600,000 barrels a day, and we just received from our new friend and partner, Venezuela, more than 80 million barrels of oil. American natural gas production is at an all-time high because I kept my promise to drill, baby, drill. Before I came along, we had the exact opposite. From trade to healthcare, from energy to immigration, everything was stolen and rigged in order to drain the wealth out of the productive, hardworking people who make our country great, who make our country run. Under Biden and his corrupt partners in Congress and beyond, it reached a breaking point with the Green New Scam. Many Americans are also concerned that energy demand from AI data centers could unfairly drive up their electric utility bills. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that I have negotiated the new Ratepayer Protection Pledge. You know what that is? We're telling the major tech companies that they have the obligation to provide for their own power needs. They can build their own power plants as part of their factory so that no one's prices will go up. And in many cases, prices of electricity will go down for the community, and very substantially down. This is a unique strategy never used in this country before. We have an old grid. It could never handle the kind of numbers, the amount of electricity that's needed. So I'm telling them they can build their own plant. They're going to produce their own electricity. It will ensure the company's ability to get electricity while at the same time lowering prices of electricity for you, and could be very substantial for all of you cities and towns. You're going to see some good things happen over the next number of years.
Yeah. So, Steve, I want to start with you. There is quite a bit to unpack there, but I imagine you liked almost every single thing you heard.
Yeah, I think we've made a good start. You know, when he says we got 80 million barrels of oil from Venezuela, I think we really got 300 billion. I mean, that's what the Venezuelan reserves are. And since we're going to be in charge of production, we got that. And so, you know, for the first time in a long time, we are in charge of the global price of oil, and it's going to stay low. And, you know, that's a good thing. And, you know, oddly enough, even oil company stocks are up despite these limitations on the price of oil. So it's really interesting, you know, so we are basically energy independent at this point, thanks to president. But, you know, we have had such terrible energy policy over the last 15 years. We're really behind the 8 ball now, especially since we need more electricity for data centers, and the president wants to reindustrialize the country. We really don't have the baseload power needed for that, and we're going to have to rebuild it. And you know, this whole affordability thing has become an issue now, and electricity affordability. You know, electricity used to be so cheap that, you know, slight increases, 10, 20, 30%, you know, it really wasn't much money. But now for people, especially for poor people and people on fixed incomes, the increase in electricity cost is really, it's an affordability crisis for them. And so President Trump is going to have to do something about that between now and, you know, the midterms and for 2028, or Republicans are going to be paying the price for the terrible energy policy of Obama and Biden. And, you know, we haven't solved that problem yet. we can't build. It's a lot easier to raise a coal plant than it is to build one. And we've done plenty of raising. The same with gas plants, and we haven't built nuclear plants. These things take a long time to get permitted. So, we have a long way to go to make up the damage that was caused by Biden. I mean, it's great that, oil prices are going to stay low and stay low for virtually forever. But, we're not quite there. And, victory lap, okay, some of that is merited, but we have a long way to go.
I guess I'd echo Steve's remarks. Long way to go. I have mixed feelings about how we're handling Venezuela, but vis-a-vis electricity, we do have coal plants that haven't been destroyed that we should make operational pretty quickly. You can do that. Rail lines still run to them. Boilers are still there. It's cheaper, but it's not as profitable for utilities because they get money when they construct something new and they get their cost plus 10 or 12%. They also get to virtue signal green. Trump's got to stop that. But, Steve's also right about history. There was a reason why utility rates were relatively stable for, let's say, 30 years ago to 50 years ago or 60 years ago. And that's because states controlled their electric power grid. The feds didn't interfere. The feds had no role to play. States did it. And they all had public utility commissions, and they were charged with two things: for making sure energy was reliable and affordable. And so they actually had control over managing rates. And then the feds got involved with FERC and trading across. Oh, we're gonna reduce prices by having wholesale trading across regions. We're going to set up regional transmission authorities, because every time the feds get involved in something, it always is cheaper. And so that's what they did. They set up these regional power authorities that do this wholesale trading, on top of the fact that many states started wind and solar power, renewable power mandates. And wind and solar power are more expensive than traditional fuels. And so you put the two together, and prices have risen faster than the rate of inflation. And that was directly caused by government power, both at the state and federal level. It has nothing to do with what makes sense commercially, economically, and it certainly is not benefiting the ratepayers.
Yeah. One of the longest clip that we had in there was about the data centers. And look, the national grid is a bit of a mess, is an understatement. And it certainly hasn't been bolstered the right way, the smart way, a way that makes engineering sense, because the last 4 years and the 8 years before that, I almost dropped my microphone, and 8 years before that, the focus was on bringing green energy onto the grid, not strengthening and making the grid, being able to handle more power, which we need. But since then, it's been the AI revolution and the need for all these data centers. And we've covered this topic a few times here on this program, but the idea that Donald Trump wants the United States to be leaders in AI, and the tech companies say we need lots of power for that. And Trump says, okay, we'll expedite the permitting process. You can build your own little personal power plant for your own corporate data center. And if there's any energy left over, I suppose you could put it on the grid. What do you guys make of that proposal? Because that appears to be happening on a fast track right now.
Well, it's a great idea, but it still takes time to do. And electricity prices are going to be expensive for the foreseeable future. You can't just throw these things up in months. And then the Trump administration has actually been penalizing Musk. He's got a data center in Tennessee, and they've got some gas generators to back it up, and I guess they use them. And people have been complaining about emissions, conventional emissions, and the EPA has penalized them. So the whole administration has to get the message. They've got to permit these data center, these local power plants or captured power plants pretty quickly, but electricity prices are going to be high for a while.
I guess I would be in favor of this plan if it was extended beyond data centers. I think any company or industry that wants to build its own power plant, so long as it's providing power to itself, ought to be able to do so. Importantly, I think that the AI companies, these big techs that have been for 20 years, for 2 decades, been lobbying for wind and solar power, pushing the Green New Hoax. And now they've come to see the light for themselves that they have to have reliable power. They have to stay out of the debate on the power grid. They can no longer tell people you should be building wind and solar while they themselves want nuclear and natural gas.
And I just want to underscore what Sterling said about bringing responsibility for electricity back to the states, because right now, as ratepayers in this national grid, we have no say. There's nothing we can do. Everything has been politicized by the Greens, and we have no control. But if we can bring power back to the states, of course, California is going to be insane, and that's fine. Let California be insane, and Californians can pay for that with the highest electricity prices in the country. But the rest of us live in saner states that should be responsible for their own power and make local reliability a local political issue. I think that's the way to go.
Anthony, anything to add to that? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was coughing. So, I've been watching this whole thing for 20 years, watching all of this, change going on in the energy industry, with green power and net zero and all this other stuff. And then watching what Trump is doing to bring back reliable, affordable, sensible power. And I have just one thing to say, and I think this is the slogan we should use going forward. Fossil fuels fuel freedom. It's just that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add here. I think everyone hit pretty much what I would have hit. So
I had my finger on the rim shot button there, Anthony. I thought you had a joke for us, but I guess not. We'll just move on.
No, it wasn't a joke. Just a statement that I thought was worth saying. It really is about freedom. I mean, think about the price of gasoline. If the price of gasoline is $6 to $8 a gallon, you're staying home. You don't have the freedom to go travel. You don't have the freedom to go fly somewhere because the cost of jet fuel is also up at the same time. You don't have the freedom to heat your home as much as you might like, because the cost of natural gas is higher. Those are all things about freedom to choose and do as you wish. It boils down to, what the Constitution says, the pursuit of happiness. The lack of affordable energy denies you the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, energy. Go ahead.
On the freedom front, I mean, I can fill up my SUV for $50, put 6 people in it, and drive 400 miles in virtually any direction, fill up in 5 minutes, and keep going. And I mean, that's the sort of freedom we're talking about.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to our main topic then. It's the wonderful thumbnail that Donald Kendall from the Heartland Institute made for us. And that's whether the Supreme Court is going to be killing all of these nuisance climate lawsuits. Let's see. And I want to bring this up. I'm going to present this story, read from the story from Colorado Public Radio, because I want to set this up being as generous as possible from the alarmist perspective. And frankly, this is the way it's covered in every mainstream media outlet anyway. So let's just get it out of the way. From Colorado Public Radio, Supreme Court to hear Suncor and ExxonMobil's challenge to Boulder's climate lawsuit. It says here, Boulder's nearly 8-year effort to recover damages from ExxonMobil and Suncor Energy for their alleged role in climate disasters is heading for the Supreme Court. On Monday, the court agreed to hear the oil giant's challenge to Boulder's 2018 climate lawsuit, which argues that the company should help pay for the escalating costs of wildfires, floods, and other disasters exacerbated by climate change. The suit alleges that Suncor and Exxon deliberately misled the public about the effects of climate change to make enormous profits, and should now use some of that money to help Boulder recover from and prepare for the impacts of global warming. Local governments have filed dozens of similar climate accountability lawsuits that seek damages from fossil fuel companies. All of them could potentially be impacted by a Supreme Court ruling that narrows or even eliminates the ability to bring these cases. Quote, we are hopeful that the Supreme Court will not hamstring our right under Colorado law to seek the resources needed to build a safer, more resilient future, said an official from Boulder. Trade groups and oil companies told CPR News that damages from climate change should be decided by the federal government and not litigated in state court. Quote, our filings make clear climate policy should be set through fragmented state court actions, and we shouldn't be set through fragmented state court actions, and we should look forward to making that case before the court, said Curtis Smith, ExxonMobil's global head of media, in an email. The court is expected to hear the case sometime in the fall, while a decision could come later this year or into 2027. Steve Milloy, I want to start with you. A policy advisor to Heartland and an attorney friend of ours says that this is a very big deal and could be a landmark case. He says that this could be the end of these nuisance lawsuits against the producers of the fossil fuels necessary for modern life. What say you?
Well, I hope it is, and I feel comfortable predicting that it will be because of the Supreme Court makeup. I mean, the reality is that you have all these blue states, blue cities, blue counties, blue islands like Hawaii, suing big oil, alleging climate damages. Now, there have never been any climate damages, but that's really not the point of these lawsuits. The point of these lawsuits is to somehow put pressure on big oil to advocate for climate regulation. And of course, big oil's been doing just that, but for some reason it hasn't happened. Maybe it's the work of the Heartland Institute. I don't know. The basic problem with these lawsuits is that climate, let's just pretend it's real. Climate is not a state and local issue. It's not even a national issue. It's an international issue. Like it's called global climate, global warming, global climate change. No part of that is local. Even if you were to concede for the sake of argument that emissions somehow are involved in these disasters, well, big oil is only a very small part of that. I mean, there's this big country on the other side of the world called China, and they are the world's largest emitter. So if there's a problem, how do you know it's not from Chinese emissions? And so the whole thing is really, it's just not justiciable, which means that it's not ripe for courts. Big oil is going to argue that climate regulation, all this has been preempted by the Clean Air Act, the federal law that regulates air pollution. And that's possibly one reason why big oil wants to keep the endangerment finding in place, because they can point to something and go, see, EPA is regulating climate, so blue states and blue cities, you can't, and courts, you can't. My response to that is that John Dingell, famous Democratic congressman from Michigan, congressman from General Motors, he helped write the Clean Air Act, and he said, when we wrote the Clean Air Act, we thought we made it clear that EPA does not have authority to regulate greenhouse gases. And what he meant by that was that, Congress actually has authority over this because if anything, it's a federal issue. It's not a local issue. So, I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. There's going to be lots of twists and turns. And, I often think that oil companies don't have very good lawyers. The Greens are much better at resonating with judges than oil companies are. So I don't know how many twists and turns there will be, but I'm confident that in the end, when this gets to the Supreme Court will say, this is a federal issue and not a state and local issue.
I guess I'd like to share Steve's confidence, but I'm not sure I do, because they have received these cases before and they sent them back to the state court saying, get through some of the cases before we make any decisions. They could preempt it. They could preempt it a decade, 2 decades ago. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so this, the problem you have. Conveniently he got frozen. The problem you have is that conservative justices like to make the smallest decision possible.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. And so, a lot of this stuff winds up going back to state courts because they make the most conservative decision they can, which is, not very good. So, I mean, that could happen in this case too. Who knows? But I think eventually the Supreme Court will have to decide that these things are a federal issue, not state and local.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they've got the justification for deciding it's a federal issue. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution that they are supposed to be upholding says, the Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with Indian tribes. Doesn't say the executive, doesn't say the courts, and certainly doesn't say the states. That is a power specifically delegated to the U.S. Congress. And if Congress hasn't acted, that should be the final word until it does.
I agree with you, Sterling.
If anything is interstate commerce, our energy system is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oil and gas goes across borders. It comes from some states, goes to other states. It's sold in every state. It is refined in different states.
I agree with you. I am merely describing the limitations of conservative justices and judges. They just they don't seem to get this. They like to make the smallest decision they can, which just creates bigger problems. They should have shut this down a long time ago. They should never have allowed it. Just as a final note here, I believe Heartland and even me personally are named in many of these suits as evidence that big oil has of course big oil has been on the other side, right?
Yeah,
I should say someone says busted. Sterling is an AI bot and has an avatar glitch. That's false, because if I were an AI bot, I'd be much better looking. I'd have more hair.
Anthony, you had something there for Sterling. Yeah, good job.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm thinking that, we're going to see a reduction short term in these lawsuits, but these folks never quit. They'll always come up. They sit up at night trying to think up new ways to take down big oil and the people supposedly associated with them. So if they shut down one avenue with this, they'll come up with something else. They always do. They are so in this saving the planet, we've got to save the planet idea is so ingrained in them. They can't give this up, even if they're handed a crushing defeat. They'll find another way.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. I mean, if you know anybody who's a leftist or a Democrat, you know that progressivism is their life. It's their job. Their politics. They'll exclude family members. They work for it at work. I mean, it's just everything they live for. So, like Anthony says, they're not going away. You cannot. There's no solution to these people. You just have to keep fighting them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like the problem that we have with Islam. You can get rid of the nuclear facilities in Iran, but they're coming right back, trying to come up with a way to get the nuclear bomb because they have to do what they think in terms of saving their religion or saving the planet or saving the country or whatever it is they're thinking. There's just no reasoning with these sorts of people who have this mindset with major tunnel vision. We're going to do this no matter what.
Yeah, Steve, I think you make a great point about the way the left versus the right uses the legal system. And it's not just, the left is a lot more active on the litigation front when it comes to this stuff because they sue in as many jurisdictions as they can, and they judge shop and they try to find a left-wing judge or somebody appointed by Obama so that they will be rule in their favor. And even if they know that the case is actually bullshit, that's not the point. The point is to make it so difficult to operate as a fossil fuel company in this country that they either settle or whatever. And conservatives, we're not in the courthouses suing for things. And our conservative judges, as you said, they want to make the constitutional ruling. Leftist judges want to make the ideological policy ruling, and there's a huge difference, and it's a huge disadvantage for ourselves.
Yeah, and I mean, they're so far ahead of us in thinking. We just went through this business with the Federal Judicial Manual, right? I mean, they have there's a climate there was a climate chapter in the Science Reference Manual for judges, all about written by people who like Michael Mann. It's crazy. The Environmental Law Institute has been holding brainwashing sessions for federal and state judges on climate. None of that would ever occur to a conservative because that's improper. It's inappropriate. It should be illegal. But they don't care. They do it anyway. So, they are thinking so far ahead of us. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. Yeah, it's constantly difficult just because, again, it's partially the cultural issue, right? Conservatives just aren't the kind of people who want to drag everything to court all the time just to make you suffer. And that's how the court case thing is how Keystone got eliminated, and the company that was building it is never coming back to it, because after years and years of back and forth between different administrations, being either friendly to it or unfriendly to it, and when an administration like a Trump administration was being friendly to the construction of Keystone, it was held up because it was being hammered with lawsuits. And then you go on and you have an unfriendly administration like Obama or Biden, where they're, clamping down on the permitting and they're trying to make it stop that way. It's just, who can operate in an environment like that? And conservatives just aren't the kind of people culturally who do that kind of lawfare. I don't know if that means that we should start doing that. I mean, we kind of have on the wind issue, right? Offshore wind. We actually have started suing some of the big offshore wind companies over whale impacts and species impacts. But yeah, it's just not something that we do. Maybe we should be doing it. I don't know. It sounds like an annoying thing to me. I wouldn't want to deal with decades and decades of lawfare.
The other thing is these groups, that's where they make their money. That, they get hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. Their endowments are enormous.
Yeah.
And they spend it on these causes in lawfare. Now, say what you will about ExxonMobil. There are things I like about them. There are things I don't like, or the other oil companies. But they're in business to produce a product and make a profit, not to sue things. That's not why they were created. Hey, let's go fight lawsuits. Now they're big.
Oh, well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I could I'll tie a bow on this by just mentioning that the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is populated by lawyers and their specialty is suing for climate, they have an endowment of approximately $400 million. They spend $220 million a year. And I just want to put that in for context. The Heartland Institute's annual budget is around $3.5 to $4 million a year. And we don't spend all that money on climate. And this show is done for free, right? we love our, it's almost for free, but but that's what these people do. And the good news is the scrappy underdogs, that'd be us, are winning. And that's great.
Did I just see in the news that who is it? I think Greenpeace just got slapped with another good size fee.
Yeah, they did.
Regarding Dakota Access Pipeline stuff, right?
Yeah, the judge upheld
$30 million.
The judge upheld the penalty from the previous ruling.
Yeah, and Greenpeace said we can't pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said we can't afford to pay it. Well, yeah.
Too bad.
Like you got to go out of business, like you want to do to every all of your enemies in the think tank world.
It's the Uno reverse card.
It is the Uno reverse card. All right. Well, you know what? I had a couple of really great segues. I did after what Linnea was saying, then after what Steve was saying, but now that's gone. So there's no segue. It is now time to talk about our sponsor to this show, and that would be Advisor Metals. If you listen to a lot of conservative shows and you listen to this show every week, you hear about the importance of buying gold and silver and other precious metals for your financial security. And there are a ton of companies out there that offer that for you. But I want to tell you why you should trust our sponsor, and that's Advisor Metals. And it's because of the man who runs the company, Ira Brashatsky. He is the managing member of Advisor Metals. He is not going to employ those kinds of high-pressure tactics or deceptive marketing. that you see from a lot of the companies in big gold. He also doesn't deal in rare coins that you are not really rare and you don't really want. When you buy gold and other precious metals from Advisor Metals, you're going to get quality bullion, and that is so much better when it comes time to liquidate this valuable physical asset. And when you buy from Advisor Metals, you will have your investment sent directly to your home. I also want to point out that Ira is advertising on this program because he is an America First patriot. He doesn't donate to Democrats, and certainly doesn't donate to the Natural Resources Defense Council. He, like us, abhors the machinations and the schemes of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, and that is why we are so proud to have him as a sponsor. So if you want to diversify your portfolio, you want to back up your IRA with real physical bullion of precious metals, go to climaterealismshow.com/metals. You can leave your information there, and Ira will make the process very easy for you. Go to climaterealismshow.com/metals, and be sure to tell them that this program sent you there, because that helps us while you're helping your financial future. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and excuse me for no good segue. Linnea, it is time for you to lead us through Q&A, so take it away.
I really do need,
I always think there's going to be some Muppets or some, like Fred Rogers is going to come out when I hear that. Yay.
No, I need the whole intro, like in Blue's Clues when they do the letter segment. Yes. That's what I need. All right. So guys, we have a lot of good questions here today. So thank you very much to our viewers for posting them. Let's see. This is from Ray Quaza, who I don't think I've seen in the chat before, but so welcome, Ray. Says, hi, Heartland. Have the CAFE norms and the 2009 endangerment finding contributed to larger, more expensive cars in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm a victim of that. One of my vehicles that I own still has gone through a number of different repairs related to these CAFE standards. For example, it used to be when you would build an engine, you would have everything made out of metal, right? Makes sense. Well, CAFE standards say you have to have a lighter vehicle in order to meet these mileage standards. So what do they have to do in Detroit? They have to come up with something lighter. Well, aluminum was not going to cut it because that's still too heavy. What do? They put on plastic head covers. Yes, I'm not kidding. And so we had this problem where one of these things cracked, and it wouldn't have cracked under a normal situation, but it was there because plastic was lighter. That's one example. And then we had another example of this. If you've ever looked under the hood of a vehicle lately, it is like a rat's maze of tubing and wires and little computers over here and over there and monitors and sensors and so forth. And just one of these things failing can put the whole engine into limp mode. And I've had that happen where a single oxygen sensor causes the whole vehicle to stop, in the middle of the freaking highway. I'm going 65 and all of a sudden now I'm going 20 because this oxygen sensor failed. And the oxygen sensor is only there simply because that monitors emissions and supposedly keeps everything in tune. Vehicles have become an order of magnitude more complex with their engine systems than they used to be. And with more complexity, therefore you end up with more potential problems. And so, yeah, CAFE standards definitely added to the cost, engineering cost, the base engineering to come up with these lighter vehicles and more energy efficient vehicles and more lower emission vehicles. That's in there. The cost of manufacturing and designing these extra systems, all in there. And so, yeah, it's been a big price increase. I think the fact that I have a 1950 Chevy truck with an 8-cylinder Chevy small block engine. It has a carburetor and a distributor, and that's it. I can fix everything in that vehicle. If I need to fix my other vehicle, I have to take it to a specialist, and then they'll say, well, it'll be like $2,000 if we can find the parts.
And in your truck, you can crawl into the engine compartment and sleep because it's that empty.
Right. That's right.
I wrote more than 20 years ago, probably going on 25 now. I argued that the endangerment finding, not the endangerment finding, the CAFE standards created a whole new class of vehicles. When I was growing up, we had something called station wagons. They were pretty common. Families used them. Station wagons virtually disappeared in the late 70s because of CAFE standards, because they were classified as cars. Trucks were treated differently. So they created a whole new class of vehicles. Dodge started it, the minivan. And the minivan was classified as a truck. So they had lower CAFE standards. And so that class of vehicles was created by CAFE. They've made vehicles less safe. The lighter vehicles are less safe in an accident. The CAFE standards are responsible for killing people. And the endangerment finding has contributed to heavier cars because they pushed electric vehicles on the road that are much heavier and much more dangerous when fires occur. So there is a lot of the CAFE standards have done a lot of damage.
You're
You are
muted.
muted.
Yeah, and one other thing to consider, if we ever have an attack of some sort that causes an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, all of the cars are going to just stop dead because they've got computers in it. And the computers are going to be toasted by that EMP. My 1950 Chevy truck with its distributor and carburetor is going to go trucking on down the road. Not sure where I'll go because everything's, turned to dust, but hey, I'm still going to have a working vehicle.
Anthony,
the fuel pumps aren't gonna work.
Anthony, the steampunk king.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Ne-
fuel
never-
pumps won't
No,
work.
that's diesel punk. That's diesel punk.
That's diesel.
Never accuse this program of not being thorough. We have covered a cordyceps, zombie apocalypse, and now an EMP attack. Different ways. Soon, next week, we're going to be talking about the sweet meteor of death that is on the way.
Yes. And above us only Sky remarks, don't get me started on stop start. So yeah, that system where the car shuts down at every stoplight is extremely annoying. And that is another endangerment finding
Well, it's not just-
related.
It's not just annoying. It messes up your vehicle over the long term because your vehicle now is starting and stopping an order of magnitude or more than it normally would under normal driving. You take a trip to the grocery store, you may do a start-stop 10 times. Previously, you take a trip to the grocery store, you start it, you drive to the grocery store, you stop it, you start it again, and you drive back and you stop it. Okay, so it's not only that, but you've got a separate system in most of these vehicles with a separate battery to handle this start-stop thing. And there's a whole black market out there that you can find on eBay where you can buy these adapters that you can plug in, to your ECU and so forth, and eliminate the stop-start. Basically, what it does, it's a memory thing where you press the disable stop-start, and it memorizes that and then feeds that back into the system every time the system powers up. So it always is in a turned off mode. But yeah, people universally hate that thing.
I gotta say, the first time I experienced one, I rented a vehicle when my wife and I went on vacation to Montana, and I didn't know it had one of these devices. Am I blinking out again? I don't know.
No.
And I came to a stoplight, and that thing stopped, and I thought, I just rented this thing. It's new. What's going on?
Yeah. It is really annoying. All right, guys.
Yeah,
we're gonna
I gotta
move
say,
on.
I think mine has stopped working. I don't know if I don't know if Ford has like reprogrammed it remotely. I mean, I have done electrical system updates, but I don't think mine works anymore because I don't use. I mean, it used to bother me.
It could be that the battery that you have that runs that has died. If you look at your manual, you'll probably find a separate small battery. I found this in my vehicle. If that battery dies, the start-stop system dies.
Oh, cool.
So that's another way. You can take out that battery and the
Maybe
system
that's
will,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds very efficient. All right. This is a comment from Darren T that I wanted to bring up, who says, so this is with regards to the Antarctic curtain study. Who got the funding to study this nonsense? Yeah, I thought we cut all this off. When is this going to stop? Steve?
Well, I mean, there are other countries in the world that fund this stuff. It's not just, I mean,
Well, we may have
China. Look, there's a lot of this funding that comes from China, and a lot of these studies are done now in China because China has an interest in promoting climate idiocy, right? They make money and they subvert America and the West at the same time. So, it's not infrequently studies you see in Science magazine, Nature magazine, and other magazines, and certainly published in the Guardian, New York Times. They're all funded by China.
Though this research, I'm guessing, has undertaken for years. It didn't just happen in the last year. They were probably doing this before. And so it may have gotten funding from us. I don't know what institutions were involved with it, but we may have funded this stupidity. What we need is a stop. We don't need a stop-start function. We need a stop-stop function for funding like this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is kind of a sarcastic question here from Morningwood, who says, the average temperature is going up and the average IQ is going down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reverse correlation going on there.
Uh-huh.
Don't give people any ideas. I now see a headline streaming from this.
Yeah.
Climate change making people dumber.
Or
I'm sure it's
some
already
people
been
are
done.
causing climate change.
Yeah.
Sterling, we covered that on Climate Realism one time. They did that study that said like kids' schooling is worse because of climate change because they're warm in the classroom. Yeah, we've done that. Okay, so Kite Man Music asks, why doesn't Trump offer gas sales to countries which currently buy from Russia? And the answer is they do. In fact, most of our sales of LNG, liquefied natural gas, go to Europe, followed by Asian countries like Korea or South Korea and Japan. So we do sell to Europe. I think our biggest buyer is the Netherlands, actually. I think they get almost at least a very large chunk of their gas from us, and France comes in second. United Kingdom is somewhere in there too. Germany, Spain, everybody buys gas from us. We are the #1 LNG exporter on the planet. Thanks to Trump.
The reason they don't buy more, and while they're still getting from Russia, is pipelines are a very efficient way of transporting natural gas. And not every country has ports and LNG ports, and then pipelines from LNG ports to where they are located. I don't know how long it would take 2 tankers full of LNG to make up the difference for what flows into a pipeline daily. But that's why they're still getting gas from Russia. And that's why, as much as we're pumping out as much as we can with the limited number of LNG facilities we have. They're going full bore.
Yeah, we're bottlenecked.
And the LNG facilities, the LNG reception facilities, the ones that bring in the LNG in Europe, are maxed out as well.
Well, plus the pipeline gas is going to be cheaper.
Yeah,
and Russia sells at below market from cheaper. So,
though for the Netherlands, there's no excuse. They are in the North Sea with I'm sure gas in North Sea gas if they wanted to exploit it.
Europe is a lost cause.
There you go. Look at that.
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, Royal Dutch Shell produces gas. Why they can't produce it for the Netherlands, I don't know.
Well, they moved. They had to move out of the Netherlands. Now they're based in the UK.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing. 18 billion cubic feet of LNG exports per day when it was not even legal to export our LNG until, 11 years ago. That's pretty amazing.
That is pretty
All
good.
right.
Now you're cooking with gas.
Well,
Yeah.
11 years ago, what was happening is we were importing natural gas because I gave a talk. We had like 4 or 5 around the country LNG import terminals. It wasn't until the fracking revolution that we started exporting natural gas.
Absolutely. All right. So this is a good question from DH, who says, why can't we use the same nuclear power plants that we have in submarines and aircraft carriers as data center commercial power plants? I don't know the answer to this.
There's a trend towards making small nuclear reactors now, just like what we've had in submarines and aircraft carriers. Those designs have influenced some of the current designs that are out there for what we call modular nuclear reactors. And modular nuclear reactors are basically designed to be brought in on a truck or trucks and put together and run independently, And so we're going to see more and more of this stuff, more and more of these kind of designs that have been pioneered by the Navy. It was a General Admiral Rickover who came up with that whole concept. He was the father of nuclear propulsion in the Navy.
The nuclear.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, the nuclear fleet.
What I find curious, Anthony, about that is, we've had this nuclear powered Navy for 50 years now.
Right.
Not new technology. It works. It's safe. I can't think of a nuclear accident, but we don't use it. And you said, well, we're working on this stuff. Why are we still working on it? I mean, it works.
It was a lot of it was classified. That part of the problem.
The nuclear Navy was the original modular nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And I asked this to the president of the American Nuclear Society one time. I said, why can't we have neighborhood nukes where new subdivision goes up and they have a small nuclear reactor like you have for ships? And he said, well, the one thing that ships and submarines have, if there hasn't been, but if there is a problem with the reactor, he said, the response in the Navy is you open a door in the floor and you drop the reactor into the sea. He says, many people don't want.
Sterling, your connection is killing us today.
Yeah, he's in the froze zone.
Many people don't want a nuclear reactor in their neighborhood that drops into their aquifer.
Yeah,
No.
That's a good point. Yeah, and Chris Nisbet asks, I'd imagine that the security for small nukes might be a bit of a problem, like many distributed smaller nuclear power plants. But that's the point of the new designs, right? That you can't set them off like a bomb or something. It's a completely different technology than like.
Right. And
I think you can make them secure, right? You can make them secure. You can even hire security. I mean, you can make it work. They've been safe. It's not like anybody's had to drop at least that we know of, drop their reactor into the bottom of the ocean, right, Sterling?
I think the key point to what you said is that we know of. I'm not sure the Navy would advertise, we just dropped a reactor into the ocean.
Well, I think there was one nuclear submarine that sank in the 60s, or
there have been a couple.
Yeah.
That was the Thresher.
But that wasn't a problem with their nuclear reactor. That was a problem with other problems. Yeah.
Right. They went below crush depth through some other accident. I think there was a valve or something that failed associated with the cooling system and allowed the seawater to rush in, bringing them below crush depth. And I would point out that making a nuclear bomb is really, really tough. You can't just simply cobble a bunch of parts together in some uranium and make something go boom. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have a very, very specific set of components, particularly in the explosives category, in order to make it work. And you have to be able to trigger it tremendously fast. The Fat Man bomb back in the World War II had an implosion system, and it has an explosion of TNT, well, not TNT, but something better than that around it. But they had to trigger all these different points to explode at exactly the same time, within nanoseconds of each other. And they had to come up with a special device called a Kryton tube. And it was a very fast electronic switch. Well, that thing, it was made by EG&G, and you can't buy those. You can't find those. Those have been embargoed as a strategic defense part. And there's still been nothing in the semiconductor industry or anything that comes even close to that. So if you create a nuclear bomb that has that explosion to compress the core, if you don't get it exactly right within nanoseconds, it's not going to work.
Also,
added to our show notes, instructions on how to build a nuclear bomb during the Climate Realism Show.
Sorry.
Also, I'm not convinced that the level of fuel from a nuclear reactor is bomb grade material.
No, it's not.
You have to turn it into bomb grade material. That's a complex. Now they could do dirty bombs, I suppose. Dirty bombs. Everyone's worried about dirty bombs. But like Steve says, look, we can secure that, and we can solve the accident problem. You don't have to drop it into the aquifer. You can have a large pool of water created underneath it.
You guys are unbelievable. I've been worried about getting this channel remonetized, and now I'm worried about getting a call from the Secret Service. Stop talking about building nuclear bombs on this program, please.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. From Don Hughes.
Right, if they do call you, ask them if I was right, will you?
Yeah.
From
No, I
Don
read about that.
Hughes.
You are right.
You'll know if you're right if they like take you away.
Exactly.
Do you think the data centers will sell? Do you think the data centers will sell excess power to the grid? Do you think what are the chances that they actually would?
I think it'll be low because they want to have overhead for expansion, right? And so if you're generating excess electricity or have that capability, you don't want to send it off and then not be able to expand later when you need it by having some contract where you're supposed to sell 10% of it somewhere. So I don't think it's likely to happen at all.
Well, I think
Unless they get net metering type stuff out of it.
I think it'll be likely to happen if they have excess, but I'm not convinced they'll have a lot of excess energy. If they build a small power plant, if they initially start as a small AI data center and they build a power plant suited to it, bigger than it, they can sell the excess. But these data centers, some of them, they're talking about being 1 gig data centers. Well, a 1 gig power plant is a huge thing. If they're going to use all that energy, there's not a lot left to sell.
All right, so this is a science question, so I'm going to pitch this to Anthony. This is from Ryan Melanson. Sorry, guy. But welcome to the chat, because I don't think I've seen you in here before. But you say regarding heating and cooling climate cycles. I think I saw you guys say that we're in a warming period, but I saw a thing from the other camp saying it's supposed to be cooling. Which one is it? And what determines those swings?
Well, that's an excellent question. The different trains of thought have to do with man-made versus natural. If you just look at it from a natural standpoint, we're coming out of the little ice age. So that is a natural cycle, and it's taking, a couple hundred years to finally come up out of that. So yeah, we're in a warming period when you look at it from a natural standpoint. And then of course, when you look at the data from our, thermometers that have these problems, you'll also see warming in there. But when you look at the long term of things, I mean, the really long term of things, there you go, right there. We have been in a cooling period since the Holocene climate optimum. And thank you, Andy, for bringing that up. That was exactly the chart I was thinking about. And so now this is over at Climate at a Glance, by the way. So, we've got this little brief period of warming here, but look at it in comparison with these other spikes out there. It's not anything unusual. And in terms of the time it took, it's not anything unusual. Look at the Roman warm period. You see a nice big spike there that went up very, very quickly, similar to what we've had. Prior to the Holocene climate optimum, you got a couple of big spikes where temperature went up. That was all natural, just like the Roman warm period. So, long term, we're cooling. Short term, we're warming. It all evens out. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, we're not going to see we're not going to be in the full interglacial in our lifetimes. That's for sure.
And the warming that Anthony talked about, the short-term warming, still hasn't reached the warming of previous periods.
Yep.
Okay,
There's
so
another one.
So this chart here is from a Science magazine story, maybe 15 months ago. And it shows that over the past 485 million years, global mean surface temperature has cooled. That little bit at the end is us. It's been warming for about 20,000 years. Coming off, if you look at it, it's the coldest. We're 20,000 years ago was the coldest period in the last 485 million, and it's been warming for 20,000 years. This is the ultimate global warming chart.
Yeah, look at that.
Everything you need to know about the hoax is right there.
Yeah.
And it
by
comes
the
from
time- by the
our
time we
friends and
get back-
allies.
Sorry, Sterling.
And it was published by our friends and allies at the Washington Post.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's it right there. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, our friends and partners over at
Well, Anthony,
Washington
people ask Anthony, is there global warming? And I learned from Anthony, since when? And so this is the longest chart I can find, and is in the Washington Post, so it must be true.
Yeah. If we get to the point, you would have to live to the next, like, I don't know, by the time that we reach the extinction of the dinosaurs level of warming, back then the continents were Pangea.
Yeah.
For a good chunk of that warm period. So by the time we reach that again, it's going to be like a whole, like the globe won't even look the same that it does now. And climate change will be the biggest joke you could possibly talk about.
At the beginning of this chart, see how much warmer it was. That's when corals emerged. So people are like worried about, a little bit of warming is going to destroy corals. No, look at when they emerged. Look how much warmer it was. People are crazy.
By the time we re-Pangea, sea level rise is going to be the least of our concerns.
Yeah. I was just joking to a friend the other day.
Sarah Palin really will be able to see Russia from her back porch.
Yeah, think about Greta's. We're in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Yeah, you really will be able to see Russia from your house.
Yeah.
Definitely. All you have to do is go back about 60, 70 million years, and you have, beachside property in the Permian Basin. So there's really no problem at all there. All right. Let's go. Let's see. Here's a good question from Thomas Adams, who says, has anyone on the panel heard of Frontieras? They take coal and break it down into diesel and jet fuel, hydrogen and naphtha, fertilizers, and metallurgical coal. The process reduces emissions and maximizes resource efficiency. This is called, I think what you're referring to is something called coal gasification. And I'll say this, I'm extremely skeptical that this is more resource efficient than just using coal for electricity. That would be my first estimate, because it takes a whole lot of energy in order to break it down, in order to do, for coal gasification, you basically have to put coal into a chamber that you can pressurize, and you inject it with like steam and like high oxygen steam. And that doesn't come from nowhere, right? There has to be some heat involved too. So yeah, I mean, this technology has existed for decades. It's not new technology. They use it in a couple different industries already. But there's a reason why, it's not more widespread than it already is. And that's because it's not the most materials efficient, but you get good products out of it. So they do it anyway.
It's
It
high
doubles
cost.
the emissions.
And
It doubles the emissions, right? It doubles the emissions.
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't say it reduces emissions, especially if you take into account like current modern year coal plant scrubbers. I don't know if I would agree with that. Okay, that's the music telling me that it's time to stop. So I will hand it back to Jim here.
Yeah, apologies for the abrupt ending there. We got a note that Steve's got a boogie, and so does Anthony. So I wanted to say goodbye to them properly before ending the program. Thank you very much, Steve Milloy, for being our special guest today. We had a lot of fun. We'll see you again at some time in the future.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We also want to thank our streaming partners, of which Steve Milloy's website, junkscience.com, also CFACT, the CO2 Coalition, Climate Depot, What's Up With That, and Heartland UK Europe. Do not forget April 8th and 9th, the 16th International Conference on Climate Change, organized by the Heartland Institute and with our co-hosts, CFACT and CO2 Coalition. And What's Up With That? Go to heartland.org, where you can find information and get your tickets. Again, space is limited. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be an unforgettable experience for you over 2 days in Washington, D.C., April 8th and 9th. Thank you very much to everybody in the chat today. You guys were on fire. It was fun. It was funny. And we also had some fantastic interactions and questions from all of you. So we will see you again next week, and bring some friends. The more the merrier in that chat. Thank you, Anthony Watts. Thank you, Sterling Burnett. Thank you, Linnea Lueken. Thank you, Andy Singer, our producer behind the scenes. And thanks to every one of our viewers and listeners of this show. And we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
How dare you!